Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
Henry Kerner is, at the moment, a member of the Merit Systems Protection Board, when lots of federal employees wonder whether merit principles have much of a future. He was also special counsel in the Office of Special Counsel and a longtime prosecutor and congressional investigator. Henry Kerner joins me now in studio, and let's begin with the current situation. You are, as we speak, the member of the Merit Systems Protection Board, and there's one member who kind of comes and goes to give a two-person quorum. What is the status exactly right now?
Thank you, Tom. First of all, congratulations on your upcoming retirement, and just really appreciate the invitations. Always been great to talk to you and your listeners.
Well, you've been one of our favorite guests.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, so at the moment I'm the vice chair officially of the Merit Systems Protection Board, and as such I'm also the acting chair. We have had, at this particular moment, do not have a quorum, so I'm the only member of the board. Now, that doesn't mean that the board is not functioning. We do have our administrative judges, our AJs. They can still do all the cases that come in. What we can't do is we can't do petitions for review, and we can't put out final decisions. So there is some limits, but the agency is still functioning.
Right, and you're at full complement of administrative judges?
Yes, everyone's taken cuts to their budgets, but we do have, I believe, 56 administrative judges still.
Right, and I'm not going to put you on the spot, but, I mean, the merit systems do seem to be under question right now, let's say, at least for a portion of the federal workforce, and we have heard of people that had great exemplary records, and all of a sudden there's findings against them, and they're fired, and they sue, and then, well, okay, take the fork in the road and retire early, or whatever the case is. I mean, is there an uptick in cases coming in? What are you seeing as a result of all this without judging whether it's good or bad?
Yes. So obviously I can't comment on cases that may come before us. I can point out that we typically have between 45 and 5,500 cases per year. In this fiscal year, which began October 1st, we have 10,435 cases. So as you can see, in much less time, we have over double the cases. We have seen a significant spike, but like I said, the agency is operating. We're hearing the cases. They are being heard in hearings with our administrative judges.
And MSPB cases are all individual. You're not a court where people can have like a class action type of filing, or can they?
Well, I don't think that's quite true. I think there are some that have similar claims, and so I think there has been an effort to see if we can aggregate them, because processing over 10,000 cases, and that's just as of now. There could be more, obviously, coming, is very difficult. So I think there is an effort to maybe put them together and see if that would work. And
on those appeals, are you able to at least render your judgment and then hold them in aside until someone else comes along to join you, and then you would have a quorum decision on them?
Yes. So I am voting on cases. You may remember famously, MSPB lost quorum for about 5 years.
Yes, we remember that time well.
To 2022, and there was a famous picture of the one lone remaining member, Mark Robbins, holding a box with cases, and he was processing. And so we no longer have boxes, all electronic, but I do the same thing. I have a proverbial box, and I do vote on cases, and they are ready. Obviously, there is an iterative process, so if there is a new member that comes in, that doesn't necessarily mean that they would adopt them. They could have a different view. There's also some discussions that occur. But we have a preliminary vote on many cases.
And that lack of quorum resulted in a huge stack, a couple of thousand cases that the board could not do when there was no board, and now you've been chewing through them, or you and the previous members, Ray Limon, and so on. And that's almost gone now, isn't it?
Yeah, we had about 3,800 of what we call the inherited inventory. They're down to 9. So really kudos to Ray Limon, Kathy Harris, and my predecessor, Tristan Levitt, for getting through them. I myself have voted on 977 cases as of today. And I've been there since June 3rd, so that's also almost, it's quite a few cases, and a lot of them were also from the inherited inventory.
And the precedential percentage, has that been particularly high? That is, have you broken new ground with any of them or with some portion of them?
We've had a few, yes, absolutely.
Anything of note? Again, you can't comment on the person. Well, it's public once you've voted who it is and so forth, but any new precedents that people should be aware of?
like I said, because there was an emphasis on getting through the cases, most of them have been non-precedential. There have been a couple of precedential cases. I think if I remember correctly, since I got there, I've been recused on those. So I'll probably better not comment on them. But people can look them up. They're on our website, mspb.gov. If you look under decisions, it says precedential and non-precedential. The 977 I voted on, I believe, are all non-precedential. There may be one precedential, but I can't recall. But the presidential ones that the other board members have put out involved some whistleblower things. As you know, as you correctly introduced me with, I was a special counsel at OSC, the Office of Special Counsel, and so I'm still recused from a lot of OSC cases, so I did not participate in those.
Got it. We're speaking with Henry Kerner. He's the acting chairman and at the moment the sole member of the Merit Systems Protection Board. And what's your assessment of the status of merit systems and of protections and of the employee environment, not just from the last few months of the Trump administration, but looking back over, 30 years of this kind of work that you've done? Also from the congressional side of investigative work with a lot of whistleblower work there.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very dedicated to whistleblower protection. I worked on hearings in the House and the Senate that had very important whistleblowers coming forward to tell us about waste, fraud, and abuse. I think whistleblowers are incredibly important to the system. If you think about an agency like the VA, for example, that has recently had almost 400,000 employees. If you're the head of the VA, how are you ever going to know about any waste or fraud? The only way you're going to know is if you have whistleblowers telling you. And whistleblowers are only going to tell you if they, under two circumstances. One, they know something's going to be done about it. It's not going to be just going somewhere in a round file. And two, it's not the end to their careers. And so if you support whistleblowers, you will benefit as an agency head. And so in my further jobs in the OSC and now at MSPB, it's really important to recognize that people have these rights, and also at OSC to bring cases and at MSPB to hear them, and also apply those facts to the law as they exist.
It's almost, if you look at this in the long term, we almost need a cultural change. I remember in the 1980s, the early 80s, when people presumed the Japanese car industry and all Japanese industries would take over the United States, and quality circles became all the rage back then. But one of the issues that the Japanese would always raise is that anybody can stop the production line, anybody can raise a problem of quality, and we'll stop things and fix it. They had a cultural approach to that that's very different in this country, and in the whistleblowers tend to have an adversarial situation with who it is they're blowing the whistle against. Do you see that ever happening in this country?
You know, I agree with you. I think whistleblowers do have an uphill battle many times, and that's unfortunate. I do think there was quite a bit of bipartisan consensus. During my tenure at OSC, we had a whistleblower caucus in both the Senate and the House, and they were bipartisan. There have been great champions of whistleblowers. Senator Grassley comes to mind immediately, but there are also Senator Wyden on the Democratic side and others. So we really have had champions, Darrell Issa in the House, Jason Chaffetz, a number of Democrats as well. So there have definitely been champions of whistleblowers and whistleblower rights. The Congress has been quite expansive on whistleblower protections, with various statutes that they've passed. So I think there is a recognition of the importance of whistleblowers. But I agree with you. The bottom line is, of course, people running big agencies don't particularly like people who dish dirt, if you will.
Right. And looking at cases that come to OSC and the MSPB, you have seen, in some sense, that a large portion of that part of the federal workforce, especially when the MSPB rules in favor of the judge who ruled against the petitioner, the person, these are people that probably, in many cases, should be out of government. And what's your assessment seeing that slice of the workforce? Do you still believe that most of the workforce is as sound as it seems to be in terms of quality and dedication?
Absolutely. And, of course, look, people, when we were at OSC, we closed a vast majority of the claims. That doesn't mean they don't necessarily have claims, but sometimes not the right forum. Sometimes it's just not something the law recognizes. I mean, whistleblowers, there's specific statutes on it, so it's not anyone who discloses any wrongdoing. Sometimes people disagree on policies. Obviously, when you have a pretty significant shift In administrations, you're going to have people who may or may not be as aligned, and that's a policy distinction. That's not the same as whistleblowing. And so there really are these kind of distinctions. But overall, I would say that you still have a workforce that's very dedicated to supporting the federal government's mission. I mean, we've had 2.1 million civilian, employees. That's a lot of people, and serving them has been the honor of a lifetime.
And I have to confess that we have a nickname for you here at Federal News Network. We call you the Happy Warrior because you have been, in a sense, a warrior and a judge and you've seen some pretty rough stuff come by these different forums, and yet you always seem to be optimistic about how things. Are you optimistic now?
Yeah. You have to be optimistic. There's no reason not to. America's the greatest country in the world, and we have the greatest system in the world. Is it perfect? No. And are there sometimes challenges that can seem daunting? Absolutely. But I think through these interruptions and these challenges, we come out better on the other side. And my belief is that we have good people who are dedicated to our mission, and we're gonna succeed no matter the challenges in the interim.
Henry Kerner is acting chairman and member of the Merit Systems Protection Board. Thanks for being with me for one last time in my tenure on the show, but I hope you'll still be a friend of Federal News Network.
Absolutely. And thanks again, Tom. Really appreciate it. Best of luck in your retirement.
Thank you. And we'll post this interview at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Hear the Federal Drive on demand. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Retired U.S. Army General Robert Brown's path to leadership was anything but conventional. Drawn to the military by its unwavering focus on mission, his decades of service in the Army emphasized mentorship, trust, and selflessness. Now president of the Association of the United States Army AUSA, General Brown joined Shane Canfield, CEO of WEPA, to share insights on making tough decisions and leading with purpose.
Hello, and welcome to the Lessons in Leadership podcast. I'm your host, Shane Canfield, CEO of WEPA. Today I'm joined by General Robert Brown, President and CEO of the Association of the United States Army, AUSA. General Brown, welcome, and thank you for joining.
Well, thanks for having me, Shane. Really appreciate it. Great to be here.
Talk about why you decided to begin your career in the military, and how did that eventually transition into many leadership roles in the Army?
I think people sometimes have this idea that folks in the military knew from the time they were born they wanted to be in the military, and nothing could be further from the truth. There are some people that are like that, but I think it's the exception. So for me, I was a pretty good basketball player in the state of Michigan my last 3 years in high school. And at the time, there was another pretty good basketball player named Irvin Magic Johnson. I was a senior in high school at the same time. And I remember my parents complaining how parents are with the kids, that he was getting all the publicity. And I said, he's pretty good, and turned out to be okay. Well, he was going to Michigan State on a basketball scholarship, and I got a basketball scholarship to University of Michigan. But then a guy named Coach K, Coach Mike Krzyzewski, was the coach at West Point, United States Military Academy, West Point at the time. So he was the head coach, and he came to my house and was very passionate about West Point. And so I said, okay, I'll visit. And I did my last official visit there and fell in love with the idea of selfless service and all that West Point stood for. The meaning I saw in serving a cause greater than self and defending your nation and the Constitution, to me, it struck me as an amazing opportunity. So I went to play basketball,
Wow.
and did not intend on staying in, but then lo and behold, like 40 years later, I ended up retiring. So people come in for all different reasons, and for me it was initially basketball, but that idea of selfless service I hadn't been exposed to really struck home.
Well, finding a mission that resonates with you personally matters a lot. Your leadership style, has it changed over time? And then is there a moment that stands out to you as something that was particularly impactful to you and your leadership style?
I think when you're becoming a leader, all of us in whatever field, you're trying to figure out, you're reading and studying about leaders, and if you see a famous leader, say, I'm a little bit like that famous leader or this famous leader, but eventually you come to the realization that you have to be yourself. Yes, you may have to, we all have strengths and weaknesses. You may have to work on your strengths a little more and fix your weaknesses, but nobody does you better than yourself. And so I think for me, that moment when I was a young leader, what we would call a company commander. So 3-4 years out of West Point, had about 180 soldiers I was responsible for. And to see that, tough mission we had, forming a team and working very hard with literally lives at stake on what you do, and then to see it come together, it's just incredibly rewarding. And it wasn't so much the huge success, but when a soldier would say, "Hey, sir, that was really tough training. That was great. It's going to help us a lot." And, that feedback, it's like, boy, you just feel like you could keep going forever, developing those teams and being successful on a difficult mission.
So I think you've kind of touched on this a little bit, but in your mind, what makes leadership in the Army unique?
Well, lives are at stake. And just about anything you're doing, whether you're saving lives, which you do a lot. A lot of people think, you're in the Army, you just go and you're constantly fighting. No, there's a lot of things we do in the Army, and you spend way more time saving lives. Again, in a disaster, I think the ultimate is you may make a decision and someone's life depends on it. That's a lot of pressure. So we study leadership a lot. And the other thing I think is that it requires a level of trust beyond certainly any leadership in any organization. You can't be an effective leader without trust. But in the military, it's trust at a level that you're trusting folks with your life. And so that is a whole different level of establishing that trust. And it requires a greater level of character, requires a greater degree of care, and I would say love for the people you lead, the soldiers you lead. And leadership is still leadership. The stakes are different, but the same principles that apply in the Army and the military apply everywhere. It's just the stakes are a little greater there, but it's the exact same principles.
Have you ever taken a significant risk, and then what was the outcome?
The answer is yes. I don't believe you can succeed in any field without taking risks. It's going to lead to failure, taking risks. And it's a concern I have today. And to get back to the direct question, I can't tell you how many times I took risks. And I can think of about 12 times where the risks I took almost led to me being relieved and my career being over 40 years. Numerous times, from a young officer to a more senior officer. Now, they're not just wild risks, out of control. These are calculated risks where you think you're doing the right thing. In some cases, that was, there's a leadership thing that's very important, is to give the credit to the subordinates and take the blame when things go wrong. So the risk of a subordinate that's trying to do the right thing, it doesn't work out. I'm not talking about, they feel something immoral or illegal. No, they're trying to do the right thing, but it may not work out the way it was planned, and so they fail. And then you go to the leadership and say, "Hey, relieve me. Don't relieve, Captain so-and-so. He was trying to do the right thing." So you, in essence, take the blame and we'll be relieved. I've done that numerous times, and and sometimes you have to, I think, to have that trust with those you lead, you have to be able to look in the mirror. And if you're doing the job for a promotion or the next job or to be a general, well, you more than likely won't be and shouldn't be. And I think that's very true in many fields as well. It's not that, you don't want to do your best, but you've got to think of the organization first and the team and first. And so you have to be able to look yourself in the mirror and feel good about who you're looking at, and not that you're out for yourself. That builds that trust in the organization. They know you're going to empower them, trust them. In today's world, in any business, if you look at business, the ones that are exceeding are the ones that are empowering their people, taking risks, and they do extremely well. The ones who are holding them back and making all the decisions at the top, well, they're going to fail.
And people that work for you see that,
yes,
and they're reading that. And
yes,
if you don't do that, then you've lost the trust of every single person on your leadership team, and you might
yes,
as well call it a day. If they think you're in it for
yes,
yourself,
that's right.
Nobody respects that.
That's a tremendous point, Shane. And I would say this is an amazing thing. From the time we're born, we're evaluating those who are in charge of us, those who lead us, from your parents, your teachers, your coaches, your scout leaders. It doesn't matter, you name it. And if you ask somebody who's the best leader you ever worked for, rarely is it the smartest, rarely is it, whatever. It's the person they knew cared about them or the team and not themselves, right? They knew it. It was very clear. And as a leader, that is absolutely critical.
The last question is always kind of fun and interesting. Who is one person, somebody that you know personally, perhaps someone well-known, but someone who impacted your leadership style and why? Well,
the first answer to that would be that I was very fortunate to have many amazing leaders over the years, amazing leaders, and I could name like 10 of them. But the one I would point out for this, I would go back to my days as a basketball player. Coach K would be the guy, Mike Krzyzewski, the winningest coach of all time. He taught me how to build a team. And we stayed close after I graduated, and we talked leadership for hours over the years. And in fact, very proud over the years, whether it was 32 soldiers or 150,000, they called me coach. So it was kind of a compliment, I thought. And, and I got that really from him, And at the time, I was playing for him. It was his first coaching job at West Point. And we knew he was really good. I'm not sure I would have predicted he'd be the winningest coach of all time. That's pretty amazing.
What an amazing person to know
and win 3 gold medals coaching the Olympic team and everything else. But definitely that I would credit him the most with building a team, and I was known as a team builder and took a lot of pride in that and enjoyed that in my time in the military.
Well, General Brown, thank you very much for joining me,
honor.
Sharing your
thanks
stories.
For having me. And,
really appreciate it.
Really appreciate it. And thanks for doing the podcast on leadership, because it's awful important. We need it everywhere. And I think it's key to our great country.
And thank you all for tuning in. This is Shane Canfield, CEO of WEPA, reminding you to empower your team and embrace challenges. Until the next time on Lessons in Leadership.
Find the full podcast and future episodes of Lessons in Leadership on the Federal News Network app and anywhere you enjoy your podcasts.